Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in. Today, as usual, I'll be discussing some controversial politics. If you're not into that kind of stuff, simply turn off the video and keep scrolling down on your news feed. For those of you that are interested, you come to the right place to get the story behind the story. I'll be explaining some things in layman's terms. Today I want to talk about the FBI and their decision they made today not to recommend indictment of Hillary Clinton for her email scandal. The indictment would have been for mishandling classified information. You've all heard the stories of the email scandals in Benghazi, but do you actually know what happened and the gravity behind the situation? Today, I'm going to explain to you exactly what happened as quickly as I can, in as layman terms, as easy as I can, so that you will understand what's going on and the decision today by FBI Director James Comey not to pursue any further. First off, I read his transcript today, and I want to start off with that. I'm going to read you, there's one part of his statement that's very disturbing. I'll read it to you here. It says, although there is evidence of potential violations of the statutes regarding the handling of classified information, our judgment is that no reasonable prosecutor would bring such a case. Okay. So he says that there's evidence for indictment, but we just don't think that any reasonable prosecutor would prosecute the case. That's not his decision. He just admitted that there is evidence for prosecution. He goes on to say a little further down, to be clear, this is not to suggest that in similar circumstances, a person who engaged in this activity would face no consequences. I'll read it again. To be clear, this is not to suggest that in similar circumstances, in other words, if someone else did this, a person would engage in the activity, would face no consequences. In other words, if anyone else did this, there would be consequences. But why is there no consequences for her? Well, you say consequences for what? That's what I'm here for. I'm going to explain to you exactly what happened. You have to tie the two together, the email scandal and the Benghazi. So I will explain both of them as briefly as I can so that you'll have a better understanding of exactly what we're dealing with here. The email scandals. She was the Secretary of State. She was in charge of dealing with foreign countries, communicating, and in charge of the embassies all around the world, and kind of the liaison for the president and those sorts of things. Well, just as most of you have at your job, the emails you use, you have a server that you go through your company's emails, and that's how you communicate. That's what the company requires. That's how you do it. They don't want you particularly sending emails through your Yahoo account or Gmail or Rocket Mail or whatever. That's just for a company. When you're dealing with the United States of America, you got top secret classified things that need to be well regulated, taken care of, and not able to be breached. Well, for whatever reason, this could be a whole nother case in and of itself. Why did she choose to do this? Basically, what she did was, instead of using the servers from the United States, the secure, top of the top brains, keeping this line of communication secure, she created her own server where her own emails, basically her own Yahoo company or Gmail or whatever. She had her own branch of communication, which wasn't secure at all. In fact, it was breached. Everything come out. It's all declassified that she had been breached. WikiLeaks continually puts out her emails. That's how most of this came about. This tens of thousands of emails that were infiltrated, and that's now who knows what. So she's trading top government secrets through emails that are vulnerable to countries that hate us and everything else. And in fact, there's proof that Russians and everything else know all of our information, especially the Saudis. We'll get back to that in a minute, the connection with Saudi Arabia and the funding of Hillary Clinton. So basically, her email server just acted like a cloud storage for other foreign entities to get. There was no way, there was no security check of the classified information. Well, she claimed that nothing that she sent over through her server was classified. Well, that's false. It is true that some things became classified later, but there are also hundreds of things that she shared on that server that were classified at the time even. So that's a big old breach in the law, and I'll get to the law part of it in a minute. Just because she was definitely hacked. That all came out. This all ties into Benghazi, okay? If you've never watched the movie 13 Hours, it's a great movie. It talks about Benghazi. The only flaw that I have in Benghazi, because some people are watch that movie and don't know all the details. So I'll give you the details to it. They do talk about it. Basically there was a riot going on. This is where ISIS was beginning. You had the Arab Spring and all of this other stuff, revolting against what was the remnants of Al-Qaeda, which is what ISIS is now, just the remnants of Al-Qaeda. In fact, Al-Qaeda was created by the CIA back in the 70s. It's called the Mujahideen to fight the Russians, but that's subject for a whole nother video that I'll do later. What you need to know right now is the Ambassador Stevens, who was brutally murdered and assaulted, requested information, or requested help, security. Things were getting ugly. He needed several times. He reached out to Hillary Clinton. She never sent him the proper equipment or security. They talk about it so briefly in that movie to where if you don't know what you're looking for, then you'll miss it. Like Ambassador Stevens will be on the phone saying, yes, we need help. Then they'll go to another scene. And then later you hear some of the soldiers that were there fighting, saying, why aren't there any Americans here yet, and all this other stuff. To me, the movie, it was a great movie. I recommend you watch it, but they should have hammered the point home about all of the reach outs he had to Hillary Clinton, Secretary of State, and she never responded. In fact, if you watch the Benghazi hearings, which I did, the emails which were breached, which they had, the ones that weren't deleted, that's another thing. She deleted 30,000 emails, which is another violation of the law, which I'll get to in a minute. She, within those emails, as soon as this happened and Ambassador Stevens was murdered along with 3 or 4 other people, she communicated with her daughter, several other heads of states, and leaders, presidents and that kind of things of other countries, saying that yes, this was a riot and the whole 9 yards. An hour or two after she communicated with them, she comes on TV to the American people and says something completely different, that it was because of a video that was going on and they revolted because of the video that the locals didn't like. I mean, it's just so ridiculous. But it already showed the timeline where she already communicated with the foreign leaders, even her daughter, that yes, there's a riot and this is what's going on. She communicates to the American people. She lied to the American people 1 or 2 hours later, saying, well, it's about a video, which had come out later on that there was no such video. None of it was true. It was all completely false. It was all baloney. So she got her own server, which is against the law. It was hacked. It was breached. Guccifer, I think 2.0 or whatever it is, has breached so many things from it. He's an online hacker, and it's really ridiculous. And she also destroyed information. What on those 30? There's enough information already for indictment, for prison time, just from the information we have. But the 30,000 emails that were deleted, we'll never know. Okay, now let me read you. Let me go to the law part, as I said I would. Okay. The U.S. Code 18, Section 2071. Concealment, removal, and mutilation generally. This is what the law states at the Cornelius Institute or whatnot. This is the federal law. Whoever willfully and unlawfully conceals, removes, mutilates, obliterates, or destroys, or attempts to do so, or with intent to do so. In other words, if you're even thinking about doing it, takes and carries away any records, proceedings, map, book, paper, document, or anything filed or deposited with any clerk or office of any court of the United States, or in any public office, Secretary of State, or with any judicial or public officer of the United States, shall be fined under this title or in prison not more than 3 years, or both. Then it goes on to say, whoever having the custody of any such record, proceeding, map, book, document, paper, or anything willfully and unlawfully conceals, removes, mutilates, obliterates, falsifies, and destroys, and same, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 3 years, or both, and shall forfeit his office and be disqualified from holding any office under the United States. As used in this subsection, the term office does not include the office held by a person as a retired officer of the armed forces of the United States, which she's not. So she's not qualified to run. She obviously broke the law. In fact, I'll go back, because if you're like me, you have to read that one more time. This is from the FBI Director, James Comey. He says he realized she broke the law. Although there is evidence of potential violations of the statutes regarding the handling of classified information, our judgment is that no responsible prosecutor would bring such a case. What? That's not his decision if a prosecutor does it. He says that there is enough information. In fact, I'll read the second part again. To be clear, this is not to suggest that in similar circumstances, you and me, a person who engaged in this activity would face no consequences. You and me, we'd be fined and in jail for up to 3 years. In fact, General Petraeus, for doing so much less, who I'm not the biggest fan of, but he had, I think, one page or a couple of pages of government documents that he removed, and I think he had it in his hotel room with a prostitute or something like that. Anyway, he was forced to resign. And they just slapped the American people in the face by the injustice of this today. Not only did they admit that there's evidence to be indicted, I just read you the law. The law states very clear. There's no doubt what she did, her own server. You can't do that. You can't go outside of your workplace and start sending company documents everywhere. I watched her speech today, her and Obama. It was sycophantic. It was the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. First of all, they act like they love each other. They hate each other. The Obamas and the Clintons do not like each other at all. Totally pandering to the poor. Talking about free colleges. Higher minimum wage. The abolishment of student debt. Okay? Understand this. Nothing is free. Somebody's paying for it. People paying for it is us, the working people. Okay? She goes on to say that the unemployment, she was praising Barack Obama, going on to say that the unemployment was 3% or something. The truth is there's about 90 million Americans not working. Now there's about 330 million people in the country. You do the math, that's about 30% unemployment. Now, of course, some people are retired and, children and whatever, but what they're counting is they're not counting the people who have given up, who aren't even in the system filing for unemployment and going to the unemployment office. They're going by just some basically made-up numbers. And to add to that, they're not even talking about the people who have settled for less of a job. Someone making, let's say, $50,000 now works at, McDonald's. Nothing wrong with that. But yes, he's employed, but he's probably going to bankrupt. But that's not part of their figures, part of their numbers. The audience is like zombies. It's everyone there, they have no idea what they're cheering for and clapping for. It was just completely made up BS. Totally. In fact, the Clintons, if you go back all the way to Bill Clinton being governor of Arkansas, the crimes, yeah, we all know about the sex scandals from everybody knows Lewinsky and Paula Jones, and on and on and on. There are dozens of these women, which are covered up by Hillary Clinton, threaten and ruin these people out. There are several women that have come out. They ran drug trafficking in an airport outside Little Rock. I can't remember the name. It starts with an M. But and there's a list of people that were murdered or died of coincidental or natural causes under the Clintons. They will do what they can to get their way. You may or may not believe this. I hope you look it up. There's probably 90 people who've mysteriously died in a plane crash or, natural causes, those kinds of things. So they're not great people, and there's no doubt what it shows today, what the FBI doing this, shows the political power of the Clintons and the corruption. I just read you the law. By law, and the information I just gave you, there's no doubt she should serve 3 years in prison and be fined. I read you the law. I read you the FBI statement where he even says, yes, there is enough information, and anybody else would be indicted. Well, to add to that, about 8 days ago, Bill Clinton just so happens to meet up with Loretta Lynch, who is the Attorney General. The Attorney General, for those you don't know, is basically like your DA in your town or in your parish or county. He's the prosecutor. Well, she needs to decide whether if there's enough evidence to invite Hillary Clinton and everything else. Well, first of all, she was appointed years back. She was appointed a federal judge by Bill Clinton. That's unethical from the get-go. She should recuse herself, but she did not. To make matters worse, 8 days ago, Bill Clinton, miraculously, his plane landed in Philadelphia, the same place Loretta Lynch was, and they spoke privately. And the news media has come forward saying that they were directed by the FBI to turn off the cameras. And the FBI admitted, yes, Bill Clinton directed us to direct the news media to turn off the cameras. So there's no transcript, there's no anything. Okay, she is in the process of getting indicted. And Bill Clinton, which is her husband, is going to go sit in 30 minutes and talk privately, which she says they only talked about grandchildren and golf and whatever. That is a coincidence that they even met up. It's not a coincidence. The Secret Service knows exactly where these people, they know where the president is, they know where the vice president, they know where the secretary of state. They don't just coincidentally meet up in Philadelphia or anywhere else. Okay? So the mere fact that she was once appointed by him, she should recuse herself from the case. Second of all, the fact that she met up with him, she should recuse herself from the case. In fact, she came back and said, well, I'm not going to be involved, but I'm not going to recuse myself because then I won't know what's going on, so I'm just not going to be directly in charge. Basically, she's just not going to speak, but she's still going to be in charge of her minions under her, whether about what would happen, which turns out that was all a big media ploy as well, because that never happened because she's not indicted. She's not going to be indicted because she says she will go off the recommendations of James Comey, the FBI director. So there's all kinds of things that would happen. This is the equivalent what would happen. Let's say you sue me. So I'll just go randomly with the DA and we just go and we're hanging out, the day before a decision is made or a few days before a decision made about my indictment or whatever. Completely unethical. In fact, the DA would probably be recused from the case and fined or jailed. It was completely unethical. And so that's what's going on with that. All right. Oh, also one other thing that I wanted to mention that he said in his statement. To paraphrase, another reason he said that no prosecutor would prosecute the case. Okay? He also said because it's about questioning the intent. He said, yes, she broke the law. Point blank, she broke the law. But when you question her intent, we don't know if she meant to do it. Let me explain something. Right now, let me just say, if I go down a fifth of gin, and I get on the road and I travel, and I slam into your family and I kill your family. I wasn't trying to kill your family. My intent was not to do that, but I killed them. I'm going to jail for the rest of my life. That's the way it works. You're not going to question my intent. Did I break the law by drinking and driving? Yes. Was my intent to kill someone? No. But you still broke the law and a murder happened in there, automatically is going to put me in jail for a very long time. Exact same situation here. He admits she broke the law. But we don't think the intent is enough. That is total BS. Baloney. Also, before we go, I'd like to discuss what Obama had to say. After Clinton gave her speech, Obama gave his speech full of lies and just total BS. He says that Hillary Clinton did a great job as Secretary of State. Okay? How about Benghazi? How about the email server? How about everything we just talked about? He even says that the pundits, he said, that's not just me. He said, that's the American people, the pundits, and everyone talking about how great a job she did. He said there's a survey out. Did you ever get surveyed? I never got surveyed about her job as Secretary of State. But he said there's a survey saying that America went from, before he got into office, the rest of the world looked at us as not very influential and, you know, kind of on the back burner. He said, but now there's a survey saying that all of the world leaders, all of the other countries look at us as the best of the best. Yeah, well, how about the fact that we're about to bankrupt? There's $20 trillion in debt. Unemployment is almost 30%, 20% conservatively, according to my figures. And all of the scandals, the Fast and Furious scandals where they sending, declassified, giving guns to Mexico. Declassified, the statement was to blame the Second Amendment, which is the right to bear arms. People were fired from it, saying, well, I got it from my boss. I got it from my boss. I got it from mine. It was going all the way to the top, which would ultimately be Obama. But before it got all the way to Obama, I don't remember exactly what other scandal or terrorist attack made the news. Everybody just kind of forgets about it, so Fast and Furious sort of goes away. By the way, the shooting in Orlando, it has come out that 2 of the guns that were used were the guns from the Fast and Furious program. I can get into more of the Fast and Furious later on another video. He also didn't say, talking about how good of a job Hillary Clinton did before the Benghazi. Trying to reconnect. Okay, looks like I'm back. This is what ISIS is. Okay, you have to understand, when the Russians were fighting Afghanistan back in the 70s and whatnot, that was during the Cold War. The Cold War, Americans and Russians didn't quite care for each other too much. So I may have to do another video. I think it's getting full. Okay, it looks like I'm still here. I'll try to wrap it up real quick. Basically, the CIA created an elite fighting force called the Mujahideen, which is to train the Afghan people, an elite fighting force to fight the Russians. The guy who ran for that, who was in charge of, who was trained, who was a CIA asset, was Osama bin Laden. So all this is a big old grand conspiracy, which I can get into more later, and I will. But bottom line, Mujahideen became Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda was pretty much broken up, and it came around again when, if you remember the Arab Spring back in, I think it's 2012 or before that, the Arab Spring where people were revolting against the Al-Qaeda and everything else, and again, they asked for help from Hillary Clinton. They never got the help. So the Muslim Brotherhood began taking, which is now ISIS, began to take over. Well, that's when they funded the Muslim Brotherhood. So we single-handedly funded the Muslim Brotherhood, which is ISIS. We created ISIS just like we created Al-Qaeda. We created the Mujahideen. We created all of this mess. And people just need to be informed of exactly what's going on. And I will have other videos explaining these things a lot better. A couple of more things I want to do before I run out of time here. Obama, back to his speech he was doing that was so disgusting. He also said he cut our national deficit by 75%. When he took over, and look, I'm not a Bush fan. Bush did some terrible things, increased our budget and everything else, but he says he cut the deficit by 75%. I mean, they completely make up these numbers, from the unemployment to this here, 75%. Okay, when he got in there, was about $10 trillion in debt. Now it's $20 trillion. I mean, what did he cut? I mean, 75%, wouldn't that be $2.5 trillion that we have now? It's total BS. Total BS. He also, oh, this is a good one, especially for my Louisiana people. He also said we're less dependent on foreign oil. You know, and where are we getting the oil from? If you work in the oil field, everyone knows somebody that does. The oil field is done. Of course we're buying oil. It completely makes these things up. Everyone here knows somebody in the oil field. We're completely making these things up. We're not less dependent on foreign oil. That is crazy. We're not even hardly drilling. So many people are laid off. You have rigs leaving the Gulf, going overseas. This is insanity. How the level of lying and manipulation that's going on right under our nose. And it's time that we understand this. And he talks about the lower gas prices. He said the gas prices are lowered because of him. It's not because of him. It's because Saudi Arabia, the Prince of Saudi, said back in 2014 exactly his plan. He said it publicly, which in my opinion is a declaration of war. We want to destroy the Russian economy. That's the declaration of war on Russia. And he also said he wants to kill the shale industry, which is the fracking and everything up north. He wanted to kill that industry to where they can maintain the oil market, set the prices, and make a bunch and keep the world dependent on Saudi oil. He said it publicly. That's a declaration of war. So why don't they do anything about it? That is the reason the oil prices are low, by the way, because, and that's the reason people are laid off, because the Saudis are pumping so much oil and we're buying so much oil. It makes the whole oil market low because the more of a demand, the more of a product you have, the less of a demand you have. So that drives the oil prices down. In our situation, it drives our economy down because so many people are laid off. People have less money to spend, less money to put in the circulation. The more money you have spending, the more money that's floating around to this person and to that person, the more healthier of an economy you're going to have. And also the treacherous trade agreement that that Obama signed with Iran is another minor issue of the oil price, which is a terrible, terrible, terrible deal. It gives Iran, who hates us, billions of dollars of our money, unchecked, unbalanced, no oversight, no anything. So that is what I wanted to touch bases on with today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I will have more informative videos for you. I hope you stay tuned for some more. Thank you so much for sharing. If you enjoyed this information, share it with your friends. Thank you.